Yeah, yeah.
We are the epitome of Black female love.
It's easy for us as Black women to hold up the banner and the calls for everyone else. But again, who holds up the banner and the calls for us? What role does the church play in all of this stuff?
Is that we as a Black church are perpetuating the same behavior as a patriarchal evangelicals have been doing.
Right. And guess
church, but it's the sisters in the congregation.
But it's a lot of times it is the Black women who bring us down more, or push or try to silence our voices more in the Black church.
Hello, my sisters. Hello, our viewing audience. Thank you for joining us again. Please let us know that you are here in the chat. Let us know where it is that you are listening from. And we're so glad that you made a decision to join us again. So let's start with you, Dr. Sarita Wright. Tell us, how are you all doing over in Kansas City?
Well, shall we start with that W we got? What about them Chiefs?
Since you didn't say nothing about the L y'all got the week before, ain't no need of you saying nothing about the W you got this week.
Because that's the past. Let the past be the past. We are the comeback kids. Now, we are doing wonderful. The weather changed up on us, so I guess you guys are going to get it pretty quick here. We started out yesterday. I was walking my little puppy, and bless her heart, it was as I was walking her, she started shaking her head because her ears were bothering us because all the wind that started blowing, and it went from 75 to 72 in a matter of minutes. So anyway, we the temperature has dropped. Today it is much colder. I'm wearing warmer gear because I don't want to be sick for nobody. My grandmother used to say this was pneumonia weather when fools and babies die. Fools because they strip too soon, and babies because they don't know no better. We're great.
I want to give greetings to Sharon Mitchell and Doris Thorne. Thank you. Carl Williams. Barama Smith. Yes. Thank you. Let us know that you're here. All right. Dr. Chandler Bradford, how you be?
Doing all right in this neck of the woods, in this Dillis, Texas. And yes, we have a win as well with our quarterback back. Oh, yes, we do. Okay. This is my heart. I know, right? This is early voting. The 24th through November the 4th. And election day, of course, is November 8th. Please get out and vote and take somebody with you to the polls. We need this. Texas, Georgia for sure. Yeah. Come on to the polls with us and let's get this done.
Amen.
Wow.
Amen.
Wow. Wow. Yes. It is important to vote. Thank you, Nell Walder. Michelle Williams, Mildred Burns, Bridget Miller. Thank you all for being here. Dr. Brenda Perry Wallace, how are you doing?
Well, prior to class today, I was wonderful because I saw the debate between Stacey Abrams, Kemp, and I don't know the other man's name, but Stacey Abrams brought it on.
Yes.
He put Kemp in his place as he kept trying to say she was lying. So please go to the polls.
Please.
We also have early voting. So come on out, Georgia. If you at Georgia,
yes.
Stacey Abrams is the girl.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm
I think I heard
we tore it down on with the debate.
I think I heard on might have been NPR news, but they said that already it was already over 2.2 million that have shown up in Georgia voting. That the turnout is already at record numbers.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that gives me some hope. We show up. We win when we show. Come on, y'all. That's
You know what,
when
Wallace?
we show up, we
Wallace,
win.
that will preach, honey. When we
When
show
we
up,
show up,
we win.
Right
we
there.
Girl,
win.
that'll
Y'all,
preach. I
come
like
on now.
that.
Y'all got to be with me on this one, girl.
Okay, go. Let's go.
When we
we
show
We
up,
show up,
we
we win.
win.
All right now. I like it. I like that. That's good, Wallace.
I'm glad you said that. Dr. Bradford talked about voting. Both she and I are in Texas, and I was watching. How about them boys, those Cowboys, and then their commercial came on that disturbed. I was like, how did this come in the midst of this? And in it, it showed it was a woman of color, who the ad was paid for by the Republican Party, Texas Republican Party,
Mhm.
and in it there's a picture of her son, and she says that her son was killed because someone was released out on bail or bailed out again or something like that, and then she goes on to say, to use this as the segue of saying, and Beto O'Rourke will bring more of this. And I guess for the average person, they might go like, "Yeah, that's right." But the thing of it is that if this is a true ad, we don't know because Republicans are, we don't know. But if it is true, the thing of it is, then your son got killed based on Abbott's policies, and so you're trying to now say someone who's running for governor is
Mhm.
responsible
Hmm.
for what the present governor has instituted. Y'all
Mm.
see this kind of, but and there'll be people who watch this and go like, "Yeah, that's right. That's why we don't need this
Misleading.
person."
It's
Right?
Mm.
misleading.
But you just said your son was killed couple of years ago. So Beto O'Rourke has nothing to do with the policies that
Mm.
this governor has put in. But if we don't pay attention to
You're
this
not
kind of
careful.
stuff,
Mhm.
yeah, and then there's somebody go run to the poll and say, "Why?" Because I don't believe in this, and it's like, but he's
Yeah.
not even governor,
We
you
uh
know.
we fail to
So
think for ourselves. We let other folk think for us. That's what some of that is
yeah,
happening in Georgia as well.
Yeah.
yeah,
That right
yeah,
there. That
Mhm.
right
yeah,
there.
yeah,
And
yeah.
oh my, and
It's been rumored. I think I said this last week that it's rumored that black men in Georgia are overwhelmingly wanting to vote for Kemp because and against and for Herschel Walker,
Ah!
and it had nothing to do with his football. If they had said, this is a macho football man, I would kind of understand. But they're voting for him because Stacey Abrams said I couldn't win had I selected an African American to run with me. I need to win for Georgia. And they are upset that Warnock has not turned back the time or done anything according to them
my God.
uh, for them. So it's really crazy here. It's really, 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 really
Mm.
crazy.
Well, I saw where Senator Ted Cruz got booed on The View.
Yeah. That was
Really?
yesterday.
Then which view is that? I haven't had a chance to watch
Yesterday.
it. I need to make sure I go back. Okay, good. Then let me make sure I
Yeah,
go back
Yesterday.
and watch it.
yeah, they went
Okay.
in on him. They went in on,
Uh,
and some were cursing at him.
well,
Oh,
okay.
I gotta go see that.
Yeah, Whoopi even turned around and said, "What?"
We want to, you're absolutely right, Bridget Miller, divide us up. Hello, Terriana Glass. Thank you for joining us. Let's see, McCracken says,
There we go.
so YouTube is showing up today in our Facebook comments. Says, I
Mhm.
even decided to work the polls this year in Alabama to
Oh,
help the
cool.
All right,
process.
sir.
Yeah, I haven't worked
Damn.
since 2019. because I wasn't comfortable. We definitely have to show up and vote.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Yes, absolutely. And what did you say, Wallace? When we show
When we
We
show up,
win when we show up. We win when
it's
we
the wait,
show up.
Wallace. It's the
We
cheerleader signs for me.
yeah. You could just kind of say it and we'll be
I absolutely love it though. I do. I do.
happy. Well, we are blessed on the day to have a guest backstage whom I call a brother and a friend. He also is part of a tremendous work that God has myself and some others in the process of doing. And so I'm very pleased on the day to introduce today Dr. Kevin Washington, PhD. I'll let him say his African tribal given name. Don't want to mess that up. He is an African centered psychologist licensed in Florida and in Washington, D.C. He is taught and lectured at several colleges and universities nationally and internationally. He has been featured in many leading publications. His expertise on Black and African psychological matters has put him at the forefront of so much work. He has worked closely with the Boris I. Henson Foundation in addressing, listen to this, the mental health concerns of people of African descent. He is a past president of the Association of Black Psychologists and is currently an associate professor and head of the sociology and psychology at Grambling State University. He is the national program director of Black Marriage Day, president of Black Mental Health Matters, founder and CEO of Roots Africa, and founding board member. He has researched the impact of socializing institutions on the healing or restructuring of post apartheid South Africa. It was in South Africa where he researched Ubuntu and how it can inform mental health service delivery to people of African ancestry and others. You all, there's so much about him, but I want him to be able to have the time to talk and present. And so, if you all, our audience, will you please welcome Dr. Kevin Washington? And again, I will let you say your African name.
Hey, thank you all so much for inviting me to be a part of this powerful conversation, this wonderful group, excited, enthusiastic group. That name is Mwata Kairi. Mwata Kairi was a name given to me quite some time ago, and the recent name that was given to me within the Gambia is Karmanaso, which is a whole other conversation about what's going on in the Gambia. I wanted to just add on something about when we show we win. It's important to think about the imperative of voting, and the backside of that is the accountability part. And I think Michelle Obama said it best when we often cast our vote and then we disappear as a people. It's almost like getting somebody to commit to a relationship, but you don't hold them to any standards. And so the thing that we need to do beyond vote is to already have in mind what standards are we going to uphold, like what are the questions that people need to answer for us, because then our conditions never change. And so it was said that history repeated itself. Really, we just in a continuum if we don't demand anything. I have never been in a relationship with anybody where they didn't place some demands on me or me place demands on them. I expect once I commit to you, these things will happen. A, B, and C. We pass a vote and we turn away and walk away. We must always stand resolute and say that now that we've gotten this far, or before you get here, I need you to attend to my issues, my needs, and don't put me on the back burner so the stuff that was mentioned earlier does not continue. That's just something I'm saying. The accountability part is very important. That's Black consciousness right there.
Wow, you said a mouthful. That's all right. That's all
Dr.
right.
Washington, we're so happy to have you today. But before we get started and really get into Black consciousness and Gambia, can you tell us how you doing out here on these COVID streets?
On these streets here, out in the streets, we're excited about everything that is happening. There's a lot of movement. COVID did cause us to shift our emphasis and aim around a variety of things, but most important, allowed us to be able to become centered. And so on the college campuses, there are a variety of issues that are occurring to and for our students. And so we are really concerned about them. Tomorrow, we happen to have, being sponsored by the Boris L. Henson Foundation, which is Taraji P. Henson's foundation, a Black Mental Health HBCU Day. The goal was to have 10 sites in the 10th month. On the 10th day, which was going to be October 10th, which was World Mental Health Day, but it didn't work out that way because of a variety of logistics. But we're having a mental health day for the students because there's so much going on. Students have lived under the threat of violence at HBCUs. Last year, we had a mass shooting during homecoming. Homecoming is coming up again this year, and then returning back to campus in the midst of or following this COVID conversation. And so we thought it was very important to have a day, and I'm glad that she chose Grambling to be one of the sites to have a mental health day where we have yoga, we'll have mindfulness conversation, we'll also have African drumming, mindful drumming, we'll have dance, and then go into talking about emotional intelligence and have line dance as well, because there's a lot that happens in the healing context of movement. And so we will talk about how to manage your emotions as one deals with all this. So that's what's happening in these COVID streets. We're doing the healing work. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, can talk to us about wow, we started out with this healthy and holy, but I don't think that is where I'm supposed to be.
So I'll jump in. Let's just go get right into it. Is that all right, Dr. Washington?
Let's go for it. Let's get it.
All right. What is the difference between Black African psychology and other psychology methods?
Right. So this is a real good question because people say, well, because I teach a class, African psychology or Introduction to African Black Psychology, they say, what's regular psychology? Why can't you? And I'm saying this is regular. I want to be clear that for me, the idea of honoring myself and how I function is regular, and everything else then is questionable. So the one thing that we recognize is that European psychology has a tendency to focus on thoughts and behavior. And then that is how it is defined. We talk about African-centered concept. We're saying then that there is spirit being central. As a matter of fact, the word psyche actually means soul and or spirit. And so the word psychology comes from the word psyche, according to Jeremiah in the book of the beginnings. And psyche means the essence of being. Thus, psychology in and of itself, in its origins back in ancient Africa, was about understanding the essence of how we function. And that essence was always spirit. So African psychology then looks at the idea of spirit that permeates everything, that all sets are connected, everything is joined together. And that when we talk about the mind, we talk about the issue of wholeness and health, and the mind and spirit actually facilitate body health, and vice versa. And so we look at the holistic approach to human functioning, both mind, body, and our soul/spirit.
Wow, that's a mouthful. I think you just answered the next question.
But I would like, I think you've already begun to kind of hit on it, but just go a little bit deeper for us in defining Black consciousness, and especially when I'm asking you to define it. You're used to working with this young generation on the college campuses. Just help us to understand it, and especially as we lead to our next kind of question you talking about, Gambia, the Black consciousness and how it is, especially in the difference of how it has been defined by westernized culture.
This is really good. When we talk about this attack on critical race theory concept, right? The idea of the affirming of a population becomes a threat to someone else's reality. This notion of Black consciousness deals with this centering of a conversation around one being aware. The word conscious means to be aware of one's essence. And too often we center our conversation about who we are within the context of being the other, the cultural other. And so when we talk about multiculturalism, for example, it is often in the context of saying there is this culture group, and then there's these cultural others who are the multiculturals. And so Black consciousness says, look, we're not dealing with that conversation. We're centering our conversation around who we are as a people. And we are aware of our vibrancy. We're aware of our essence. We're aware of our power, our prowess, our significance in the world. Doesn't mean that we're in any way perfect. It means that we have power and purpose. And so we're not simply something operating on the fringes of somebody else's reality, that we operating from the center of our Black consciousness, meaning that we are aware that we're divinely inspired to be here like everyone else.
Mm. Mm. But that consciousness is a part of soul as well, because the soul, if you can talk to us about the connectedness of mind, body, soul, spirit.
So we look at soul as the movement and spirit being the mover, right? So we think about even soul food. What makes the soul food the soul food? The spirit enters into the substance, and the substance is transformed into something that can be experienced. For example, also you have a basketball player, right? Spirit moves the player, but soul becomes the expression of the no-look pass or the dribble, or discussing football, right? Spirit moves, soul is that sidearm pass by Mahomes, or the elusiveness of Fields last night in Chicago, right? That's idea of soul. And so we know that one is a vehicle and one is the substance. And so when we talk about the issue of soul food, which is really interesting, because in Ghana, in the language of tree, okra means soul, and one of the things that people put in soul food was okra. But this notion of soul being the expression of the divine, and spirit being the essence of that divine element. And so when we go to a buffet restaurant and we can eat somebody's chicken and greens, it does not taste in any way like Mud Deer, Big Mama's, Aunt Joe, Uncle Buck's stuff. I don't care how, I've never been to one yet, because they don't have the soul in it, because spirit is not into the substance. But when Big Mama knows that we're coming home, her spirit is enlivened, right? And as a result of that enlivenment, then the substance that she imbues with her essence then has an expression that then resonates with our beingness, and thus we know that is soul food.
Wow. Dr. Washington,
stay right there. I like that. Earlier you talked about movement and mind. Can you talk a little bit about movement and how it's liberating in our culture?
So when to be transfixed in the space of racism and oppression, it actually takes away the soul's or essence, right? So we talk about I can't breathe. The I can't breathe element is not necessarily something physical in the brother that was choked out. The I can't breathe is when my soul cannot fully be expressed. That is the loss of breath. As a matter of fact, spirit is the thing that imbues it. So we know that the word inspiration is built around the word spire, which is spirit. And so the last breath we take is expiration, which is when spirit leaves the body. So this movement part is very essential, that if my breath is somehow taken place, that I'm being choked out, then my expression of my humanity is also diminished. And so we can see that there are many elements and aspects of that happening, where our people feel choked out and their spirit is leaving them, and so their soul is expressing itself in a very soulless manner. Among the Akan, Akenu Ka is what was said in ancient Kemet when somebody had no soul, or Akamko, which is the same thing in Tree, which says that if you operate without soul, you're missing something. Among the Brahmana, they have a word for it called Sikere Folo, which is a Daya. Daya is a part of the human that is in spiritual realm and physical realm at the same time. When Daya leaves, it's like we're caught in, like a deer caught in headlights. But if it stays gone, then we have Sikere Folo, which means then we operate almost like what we call in Western psychology schizophrenic. So we have to recognize that we are often operating from a space of soullessness because we're being asphyxiated in an environment that disallows us from fully expressing our divine essence, our humanity, and all of its manifestations.
Wow.
But that
I'm going to pick up
movement
right there.
started with the
I,
hush harbor for us on this continent.
yeah. And
Was
So
so,
that
it's,
rain
yeah. And so
shot.
I want, yeah. And so I want to pick up there you talk about being suffocated on this side, and then Wallace just saying the hush harbor on this continent where we started, but it goes a little bit be a little bit further than that. So I want to get here to this place, and it is one of the things, as you say, and in the work that you're also helping and that we partnered in doing and pushing this, and we're excited about an upcoming trip that you have, but it's deeper than just taking a trip, right? And so one of the ways in which you support Black consciousness and helping us to breathe, to get in connection with our soul, right, is sponsoring a trip to Gambia. So can you talk about your upcoming trip and how and what that means in taking this kind of trip over to the motherland and more specifically to Gambia?
mm, that's a really good one, right? Multiple layers in this. The 2023 trip is going to be in December, which is around the time that there is a fusion of, which people cannot imagine, a fusion of Islam and Christianity coming together, because it's not about the religion, it's about the celebration. And some of that stuff will be laid to rest as some cultural aspects of mask dancing and so forth on the Kankaran will express itself as well. And so that happens in the December time frame. And so there'll be some connections made with the space of Alex Haley's home in Jufere. Jufere is Kunta Kinte's space, so we are plugged into that community. We'll do something in um, in May 2022, which is very similar. So we look at going twice a year because we're working to build and to connect and to strengthen the connection through development. And so the taking people back to the continent is to say, let us recognize the space from which we have been extracted. Let's not get caught up in this idea of the incarceration space. When we see Haiti, we're seeing a space where individuals were taken from a continent and left there. And so that is like a prison. When we deal with the dynamics of even being in the United States, the reality is that we were brought here, most of us involuntarily. Thus, this is a holding station for us. And we have the opportunity, as any other group has, to make connections back to the space that we come from. There is St. Patrick's Day. There's Oktoberfest, which is a made-up German holiday, by the way, according to folks from Germany. But there are these points of connection that the Italians make and the Irish make, and we miss that connection because somehow we believe that we didn't lose anything, that everything that we are is here. In reality, what is here is an extension of what we came from.
Mm.
So when we talk about the industry of cotton, for example, the first cotton was turned into fabric on the west coast of Africa, and then the Europeans said, "Let us bring the Africans here, not trade from Europe to Africa to the U.S., bring them to the U.S., and then we go straight to England with it." And that's part of the reason why we got it. So the technology that makes fabric right now, cotton into clothing, is African genius. Mm-hmm. And so in the Gambia, we can see that actually, we can see images of people taking pictures on top of mountains of cotton. The river Gambia is what was controlled by the Europeans, the British. And that's why the Gambia sits inside of Senegal, because the French kept everything else around the river. The English wanted to maintain the river because from there they could transport human cargo from the interlands, from Burkina Faso and Mali and other places, current day Mali, out down that river. And that is why the Kunta Kinte story is so important, because it is on that river that Jufere exist, and that was a holding station as well. And so we have people being transported out. So ancestors were moved. Many of them moved down this river. We know about Ghana. We know about Senegal. Do we know about this riverway that the British controlled to export Africans out? And so we take people back to say, listen, here is your connection back to yourself, your soul, your essence, your being. These people look like you, talk like you, think like you. If you just simply talk to them, you say, wow, there's some connection. Are things identical? No, because of different experiences. However, the embracing of soul or essence is powerful. And to go back to a place where you are embraced out of the gate just for being is something that I think everybody should encounter at least once in their lives.
My God. Oh, my God. So the Gambia trip is December 2023.
Right.
So
that's
how
the 2023 trip, right? And that's in December. How do we get involved? Good question. We will have that information very soon. We're working with this African American group that the sisters have put together a powerful trip. So we're slowing down as to how we will promote that one. But it is exciting to know that we're working with these sisters who are just phenomenal. And we will have all of that information moving forward, so people can jump in. Now through Roots Africa, there's a way to begin to contribute to individuals. So we have various projects that we're working on with people. One guy's named Jete, who does artwork, and his role and function is to not only engage in doing these beautiful paintings, but he brings youth off the street and he teaches them how to paint. He wants to have more equipment, more supplies, right? Canvas and paints to be able to share, to bring in more young people off the streets, to be able to show them the skills and abilities and talents of painting. He's housed in a place called She Rose. She Rose is an organization that goes out through the Gambia and takes care of abused women throughout the space. And so we are supporting that organization. Somebody just recently donated a serious camera from the UK. We met with some people in the Gambia and we connected with them, and it says, I really want a camera because my background, Fofana's background is really not photography, film. And so she started doing She Rose as something on the side. Now it's become her main thing. She needed a certain camera to be able to document certain things. So we're helping her get supplies for that. So these are the activities that are going on all over the Gambia. The queen, the chief, you talk about woman king, the chief of Jufere asked for us to facilitate her establishing a house on a certain plot of land. So we're helping her to build this house, and she has in turn granted us some land to be able to do some other work that we desire to do. And so we've marked off this land. So we're having these exchanges all over the continent. And so we're having people to be able to contribute and donate to Roots Africa, to various projects. One brother goes out and does fishing. Keba Ba. And what Keba does is he's fishing. He brings his brother with him. He has one brother that actually died who taught him how to fish, died because he had some kind of brain aneurysm, something's going on in his head, and he didn't have medical care to be able to get it treated. So his brother died. And so you can see Keba sometimes just stare at the water as if he's just missing somebody. That's how I know about his story, is that, I was asking what was going on, and he explained the story. But the other part of the story is that because of the Chinese ships coming in, they're taking a lot of the fish and they have to go further out. So he asked simply, can you help me get an engine for this boat that we paddle out? And that helps us to go further out to be able to get more fish to take care of ourselves and take care of various restaurants in the area. So these are projects that we're engaged in to help people to actually facilitate their lives. And that's how people can contribute. And we will have that website up really soon. So we have your participants, to subscribers, to be able to lock in and pick a project. And we have several projects. And I mean, we get calls every single day. Can you help me do this? And it's like, you know what? There's no way I can help do all of these things. But what I find is that as we engage in the exchange, we're able to benefit astronomically, right? So we're, I know I'm going on. I got excited. But when we talk about this, Keba and the fish, We're also plugged into the Ministry of Education and the curriculum development piece. So one is about learning the language. Every area has a language. So there's Wallall spoken in one area, there's Jola in another area. But the point is that tying in curriculum and language development for children. What tied to that is tying in throughout the curriculum, weaving in the idea of the fish and the economy of the fish and fishing process to work with Keba. So one, children can learn about the water and the sea. At the elementary level, they can learn about the various types of fish. And then later, math can be taught as we talk about how much fish do you need to bring in to sell so people can work at different levels. And so what happens is that just simply taking one person who has a fishing issue and then talking about fish, the ecosystem, weaving of the net, the process of buoyancy, why does a boat float, all those things, we're weaving those into the curriculum so that we have Keba not only having an engine for the boat, but his whole operation becomes a classroom setting where children can appreciate where they are in the Gambia and not try to run out of the Gambia on boats and drown in the water, but they can see that there's a lot of wealth and value there. And so all those things are happening in the Gambia.
Well, you talked about the cotton coming from Gambia. The Europeans brought us as Africans from the continent based on economics and what we could do for them, how to weave baskets, how to grow rice, so each area has they were strategic in how they brought Africans from the continent. So can you tell us what is the importance of identifying one's ancestral lines to reduce the persistence of enslavement, systematic trauma, that you created a way of working, not ACEs, but the trauma of Africans and to bring some empowerment from that enslavement?
That's a powerful statement you made when you suggested that they selected a dream team to build the economics of this country. They knew that a population understood clearly how to work cotton. As a matter of fact, there is this Carolina gold conversation where the rice in the Carolinas following the Civil War was the thing that saved this country because the war had destroyed many of the plantations. And so what happened is that they brought in Africans from the Senegambia region who comprehended how to grow rice through salt water. And so they were able to work on ways to bring the water from the ocean, separate it out, the salt out to be able to grow rice. And that took some time to develop that. And so people died in that process, right? Snakes were in this water, all kind of stuff was happening. So people were dying for this process of the Europeans to engage in this economic development adventure. And so what we recognize is that it was the African genius. If it is called Carolina gold, it tells you about its worth and its value. That it was the genius of Africa that knew how to grow rice. And it wasn't until I went to the Gambia and realized that this idea of sweet water, which is fresh water, and salt water, and how the river moves and how they move in that water is like, I understand now why they brought Africans from this space, because they understood how to work in and work the water. When I saw that, it just changed my thoughts about who I was and changed my ideas about what the Carolina gold conversation was. But also, there's the actual gold itself that comes from primarily the area of Ghana. But then on top of that, we talk about cotton is king, and the only people that can make a king are kings themselves. So the reality then are the king makers are people who have come from a divine space of being kingly, that they understood how to connect with things. So when people recognize that the basis of the economy of this space is predicated on the genius of African people, you talk about the issue of African labor, European wealth. We see the same thing play itself out when we talk about athletics. It's black labor, white wealth, right? So we see the same thing, that it becomes the genius of a population that actually builds the wealth of someone else, and we don't recognize that it is us doing it. It's not how somehow we think that we have to be in the system, but without us, the system fails. And the point is that is a part of consciousness when you recognize that, wait a minute, what I come from is greatness. right?
Oh, Lord.
When just even
Lord.
today, when I talk to the students about James Weldon Johnson and the Lift Up Your Voice and Sing coming out in 1917 as a national black anthem, the U.S.
Jacksonville.
didn't have Jacksonville, and didn't have an anthem until 1930, 31, 32. So I said, who had the anthem first? So who already knew what was happening? So then the country had to get an anthem after African people had their own anthem. Think about how genius that is, right?
Mm.
So when you recognize that you are the one that's paving the way, that you are creating reality, you don't have to ask permission for certain things. You demand to be divinely recognized because you understand that you are a seed of a seed of a seed
Wait,
of
wait,
a
wait,
seed of the seed.
wait. When you know who you are, you don't have to ask for permission.
No.
That's amazing. You
The man.
when we talk about who we are, you know, and the ancestries, the other identifications or self-identifications or ancestral identification lines, what is the importance of identifying one's ancestral lines to reduce persistent enslavement system trauma, which is what you call PEST?
Right. So when you recognize that you're not the N word, you're not a female dog,
Come on here.
that you're not a garden tool, right? When you recognize that, it changes that because those are words based on trauma. Because the identification with dehumanized terminology is a function of being traumatized, which then serves the oppressor in a way that allows them to expand themselves while we become reduced to nothingness. So we identify, I can put a whole song together with the N word and put a nice rhythm track to it and it will sell. And then let me add the B in there with the N word and it'll sell even quicker because I got N and B's going at it right in the song. These are dehumanized terms and we use them as so-called terms of endearment. You do not find any population in this country utilizing the lowest level of a nomenclature to describe the highest order of their relationships, right? There's no group. You can go all over and you will not hear a country western song with white boys and white girls and white men and women singing about the lowest level of their existence. You will not hear Native American. You will not hear anybody. As a matter of fact, Jamaica has just banned that kind of music altogether in Jamaica. But the point we were making is that the consciousness, right, past the trauma, that these are responses of being traumatized, and these come from years of untreated trauma, that those who have been traumatized pass on that trauma genetically as well as consciously. And so Diaz and Resler did some research with some mice, and these mice would be shocked, and then they would have a whiff of orange blossoms. These mice would associate the orange blossom with the shock, the trauma of the shock, and therefore when they smelled the orange blossom, they would have a visceral response. These mice would have pups who would not be shocked, but they would have the orange blossom smell. Their bodies would have a visceral response. These mice would grow up and have pups, and their offspring had the same experience. So we have then 3 generations, 2 iterations from the first, having the visceral response of the trauma, yet 2 of them never had the trauma at all. And so that shows us that at some level, though we are not as mice, there's some commonalities, that some aspects of trauma can be passed on genetically. That is the study of epigenesis, right? But also Resler said that ways of healing, of recovering, of repairing can also be transmitted genetically. That they also had mice that were trained as to how to respond to this trauma. And this response mechanism was also passed on genetically. So we have to recognize then that the trauma of the experience of enslavement, the incarceration experience, the sodomization, the beating, the lynching, the castrating, all these things of actually dehumanization, the terminology of dehumanization are things that can be healed if we recognize that there is a pest, persistent enslavement, systemic trauma, persistent, ongoing, systemic throughout every system of our existence. Enslavement, the consciousness of enslavement, and it is trauma, it is disrupting to the spirit or our essence.
Well, you talk about dehumanization. and the terminologies that we use. Africans still believe in Ubuntu. Because I am, we are. Because we are, I am. Can you talk about that principle helping us in the field of mental health, especially from the example you gave of mice being able to heal from the traumas that we experience over and over and over again? It's not like we have this trauma and then it's over, but it stays with us. And in some ways, we pass it on genetically to our offsprings. So how does Ubuntu help us understand community?
That's okay. So that word is community, right? So the Zulu concept, Ubuntu, says UBU it deals with the word idea of being. Into you is unifying life force. So we have a unifying life force within our beingness. And so this idea of a divine presence into you, you see that in Bantu people, other people, the divine people. You will see that this into you among the Bantu languages is essential. So this idea of Ubuntu that says that your humanity is tied to my humanity and that we can be only human together. That whatever you do in your space impacts me in my space. And thus I have to hold things in an upright position. Uh, uh, um, um, Desmond Tutu, Desmond Tutu says that it speaks to the idea of cooperation, the idea of humanity, of treating the earth and others with respect and dignity, to rise yet human despite all things that are denying one's humanity. And what you said is, I am because we are, therefore I am. That is the connection. Now, this is something critical because we did not lose that Africanness, right? How do we know we didn't lose that? Because grandma said, don't let your name beat you back home. Don't go out there and embarrass us. So that's the Ubuntu idea. They didn't call it Ubuntu. We have to simply remind people that this is how we live. This is really who we are. When we talk about greeting somebody, how your mama nim, not how is your mother and the rest of them, how your mama nim. The idea of how your mama nim, ebonically correct. I want to be correct ebonically,
who your
right?
peoples?
Right, who your peoples, right? How your mama nim suggests how is your mother and all of those that are attached or tied or connected to her. That is the idea of connectivity. Because if I can understand how your mother is doing, the womb through which you have passed, then I can understand how you are doing everything around you. And so
Everything
this
that's
notion
connected to
of
you. I love it.
how your mama
Yes.
Nim speaks to connectivity
Yeah.
and humanity. And then you say, well, she fine, eventually correct, zero copula, right? Not she is fine, she's doing well, she fine, but Ray Ray's out there on that stuff again. Tell your mama I'm gonna come by and I'm gonna bring her some greens. You ask the question, what do the greens have to do with anything? Because Ray Ray's out there on that stuff again. Well, in reality, the person that's going to engage in preparing those greens is going to have an incantation, some prayers, some song as they're being cooked, which means they're putting back essence into that. So when they carry the greens to the house, they're re-spiritualizing the person that has someone missing. So that is Ubuntu all over again, right? So we have these vestiges, but it's like we don't know how to identify these diamonds in our own backyard. And so when they come together, they bring the greens in, we'll put them on the stove. Okay, well, I heard Ray out there again. Yeah, Chahi out there. Well, let's just pray. Now they're going to get into a circle. Now you're back to your Hush Harbor conversation. Going to get into a circle and going to pray. The idea of the circle. Why? Because if Ray is out there and that's your child, Ray is my child too. So that's us. So let's pray for Ray. So they say a prayer and then they may even eat those greens together. So my point is then you're saying that that is because you are in pain, I'm in pain. But as we engage in corporate prayer, we're going to send something out in the universe, and maybe that's going to impact, because we believe in the power of prayer, what Ray is doing out there in those streets. And so that'll bring Ray home. So the point is that we recognize that Ubuntu exists. And in all African languages, there's this similar concept of what it is that you do impacts me, and we're always connected. The European notion of beingness is how we function now. But even in that word individual, we must recognize that in the word individual is the same concept. In means not, divi means divide and or split. Dual is duality. So the word says that there's a duality that can never be split, whether that is mind, body, spirit, and soul, male and female, masculine and feminine, whatever that duality is, it's never split. So even in the word individual is the idea of Ubuntu. But we are the purveyors of such that says that we know that whatever you do impacts me. So don't make us look bad by going to making a fool of yourself. Right. That's heavy Ubuntu right there.
Mm.
Wow.
God.
It takes a village, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
My gosh.
That's what Hillary Clinton said, right? She made that up, right?
Oh, right.
Mm.
she got that from
It's
somebody else.
Yeah. I love the
She
fact
borrowed that.
I love the fact that you talk about connectivity and how we are we're not in silos, but we're all connected together, and love breeds love and soul ties. And it is amazing to hear you talk about it. We'd like for you to share with our audience why it is so important for African Americans to take care of their mental health as they take care of their spiritual health, and how are both of them intertwined?
So in ancient Kemet, they said that a whole and sound mind leads to health, wealth, and prosperity. That it is imperative to take care of your mind, that in the absence of that, then things would fall apart. Uh, my grandparents would say, a fool and his money will soon depart. The idea is that if your mind is not right, nothing in your world is right. When we see the various parables written in the Bible about good grounds, for example, if you recognize good ground is about a mindset, right? The idea that stony ground, hard headedness, right? Thorns, weeds, the idea of you contaminated with so much trauma, you can't get these seeds, right? In the good ground, when you move those things out, it's about consciousness. Even when we talk about, for example, Yeshua, Jesus being born, no room in the inn. Often people think about a physical location, but if Jesus means my salvation has come and coming in the wee hours, then in reality, this is about something that is trying to be born in our mind. But because we have so much clutter, nothing can be born in there because we're dealing with so much junk. So our salvation can't come to remove us from one space to the next because we got stuff there. Right. And so the trauma is blocking us, right? The thoughts, the negativism. And so then we have a plethora of stories, of narratives that says, get your mind right, right? And your behind will follow. That's part of the Funkadelics. All right. So anyway, we throw in a lot of stuff, right? So the idea is that the reality is that when we talk about the essence of your spirit, for African people, spirit and mind are interconnected. That is a union between the two. And so the mind is that which is a part of the divine consciousness. And when that is clear, the spirit is able to do and fulfill its mission more freely. And so we have to take care of our minds, because that is how we're going to get to health, wealth, and prosperity. We have somehow a marriage with poverty, and we think that poverty is a virtue, and somehow that comes from some of the old enslavement teachings, and some through pastors. They told us to talk about blessed are the poor, meek, and humble, and focus on poor as in impoverished, not those who are humble. And so we get stuck in those narratives. I'd rather have this silver and gold. I'd rather have Jesus and silver, right? We get stuck in these things. I'd rather have both, right? Silver and gold and Jesus. So that's why I got stuck there. So the idea is that we get stuck in this poverty mindset, and we think that is the holiest of holy position. But if it is about having abundance, it's not about prosperity teaching. It's about having all that I have been imbued on this earth to give. That's the parable of the talents, that have I taken what I have been given and placed into the universe as a form of service and has a return back to me a fivefold, tenfold, right? That's the thing. But we're so busy stuck in poverty, what I don't have, burying it, and then can't figure out why we can't be blessed because you hadn't put it back out there. You hadn't put it back out in the universe waiting. God, I'm waiting on you. Whenever you come, God, it's going to be all right. And God waiting on you. You waiting on God. God was look. So we got to get up and put it into the space. So when our mind is right, we are free to know that we have something to offer the world. And we start from what we have, and then we expand upon that. When you go to the gym for the first time, you don't have big muscles. You got to keep working, but you work the muscles that you have to get the more. We want the more before we work the muscle. That's a whole other conversation. So this idea of mental health says that when I understand who I am in consciousness, I'm able to have spirit. And I honor spirit. I honor the ancestors. I honor those that came before me. I honor the fact that I will be an ancestor one day. So I live my life in a manner that is respectable of those that are yet to come. They say that if you want to live forever in Kemet, you must build forever. So then I work on building things that will stand in ideas, in consciousness, in structure, so that there is something to recognize me by. And they said a person dies only when the last person knows them by name died. And so I live forever because somebody can recognize us, recognize me. So my grandmother lives because I called her out several times in this conversation. So she's not dead. She's living in spirit. And so these things we recognize are very important, that we must live forever. We must build forever. We must do. We must recognize that we are the sons and daughters of the divine, and not see ourselves as being N, B's, and H's.
Doctor, it was a time in my life that I had no consciousness or no idea of, as long as you could call the name of an ancestor, that ancestor lives. But when my oldest daughter was born, I named her after my mother, who died when I was 10. I had only spirit, only the Holy Ghost, only a God could help me to know that I needed a way to call my mother's name even in her grave.
There it is. And we see it all the time. I had students of all kind of names. Like, did I tell me about that name again? Well, I'm embarrassed about the name. Wait, you got it from who now? That's from your grandmother and your maternal and paternal grandmother. They put it together. Yeah, but I don't like the name. Hold, listen to it again. And so we process it. Then it's like, wow, my name has meaning. Yes, your names have meaning, right? And we have the capacity to make those connections. Even when we have the Shaniquas and Reniquas, I say that even though we want to call them ghetto names, but why, when I say call a ghetto name, you end the name the same way with a ah. What is one of the sounds that you say when you take a drink of water and it's refreshing? Ah. What the idea of ah alludes to divinity, divineness. So even in that ah sound is a tonality of giving reverence to something higher than yourself.
My God.
When we start recognizing that these things are ancestral memory pieces coming alive, we know then how to honor them differently instead of bastardizing them like we are so conditioned to do. So that is also spirit. So naming after the ancestors, naming these names. Look, and those so-called ghetto names are powerful because they're saying, look, I'm going to break away from the European whole. And who told them to do that? So I'm going to do something. It may be jacked up from the back up, but if you work with it long enough, you can find some good even in the most confusing thing. And so that's how we help people break it down and say, wait a minute, there's something more to what you're being called, your vibration, the utterance. And this was what speech was. There was in Kemet, there was Medu Nefer, Medu Neter. Medu Nefer was divine speech. Or among the Dogon, they call it Nomo, Nommo, the power of the spoken word. That the words have power. And for the Dogon, they say word has heat and moisture. The same substance that creates life, heat and moisture. That hot, moist substance emits from man into a woman that creates life. They say that the word has that same power. It is moisture that enters into the universe and creates life. That when I say we're going to meet at a certain time, I'm releasing something to the universe that impregnates the possibility of a moment of engagement. So that's why they say that the word is sacred and divine. So you don't go around misusing the word. Among Europeans, they say sticks And stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. In our space, we talk about the issue of the man's word is his bond. And so the bond that a man and woman have together when they have a child is their child. So the bond that we have together when I emit substance from my breath and vice versa is that we have a bond of a life that can happen in the context of an activity or event. That's how we understand the power of who we are. So for us, the word is sacred. The word is spirit. That's why even it says in the Bible, what in the beginning was the word, right? And we can go ad nauseum. That's how we know that even the writings there don't fit within the Western worldview. So there had to have been some African folks jotting this stuff down, and Europeans just saw it and transcribed it. But that's grist for another meal. We didn't come for that one, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Commit in the 10 Commandments. Come on, Doc.
Now she wants to talk about the 42 laws of the mind.
Well, you all, it's been an absolutely wonderful conversation, but we are at time. We're at time on today. Dr. Washington, wow, this conversation, as always, in conversation with you has been tremendously enlightening. You aren't able to see the comments, the many comments that are coming on Facebook, but they're talking about real truth to power. This is good. I mean, they just absolutely so very appreciative, as we are as well. We do ask that you hang around backstage for us just for a moment. We're going to take you on screen, but just hang around for us, and we'll get right back with you. Thank you again so much for being with us on today.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Powerful. Ooh, it's so powerful.
It is wonderful. We will see you next week, same time, same place. We love you, and there's nothing that you'll ever be able to do about it. See you next week.